Good morning. I was supposed to go to work today, but we had a tornado in Michigan last night and they don't have power, which means that I have the day off, which was a very nice surprise. And I'm going to use this to my advantage and hit some thrift stores. This thrift store I've been to before, they always have so much fabric. And like lots of craft supplies, hoping that maybe I can find some yarn. Okay, I got way more than I had planned to, so I'm gonna go home and show you everything that I got. Hello again. It's now 10 o'clock at night because you want to know why? My manager called me at like 2 o'clock and said that I had to go in. Did hit the jackpot when it comes to yarn. It was a tag day of some sort. My subtotal was $111. Cute. I got 4 items for half off. Starting off strong, I actually did need navy. I went in there looking for navy, so I'm really glad that they had this. Never been used. This yarn is definitely vintage. So I got that nice little blue acrylic. I don't know if you guys care about prices, but I paid $5.29 for this yarn. I needed red desperately because I want red shorts. This is a very big skein. However, I do not know if this is enough to make shorts. We will find out. And I believe I got the red yarn for half off. I did. So I paid a whopping $1. I have to double check because I kind of don't believe it. I paid $1.67. For all of this yarn. Steal. I also bought this fluffy white yarn, which I don't normally knit with, but I saw a girl who made a maxi skirt. It was like a scrap maxi skirt, and then she specifically used fluffy yarn at the bottom, and it made this like gorgeous, beautiful effect. And I said, I want to try that. So I got this big skein of white fluffy yarn for $2.29. The manager of that Goodwill was amazing. She was so sweet. This came in this bag with this black yarn, which I always need. This is a chunky black yarn, which was a prayer answered because I don't normally buy chunky yarn, but I've been curious about it as of recently. So I got 2 big skeins of plain black chunky yarn and this purple yarn with fun little colors running throughout. Huge skein of white cotton. It came bundled with these 3 skeins. That was $4.29. This bag I didn't open because I realized they probably didn't want me doing that. But this is like a fluffy purple yarn. I don't really know how to describe the texture of it. It's kind of like chenille, but it's not. Is that chenille? It might be, I'm not really sure, but I just really gravitate towards purple. So we've got like 1.5 skeins of that purple, another big skein, and all 4 of those were $4.29. So about $1 a piece. Also love blue, and I don't have a lot of blue yarn. So there's this pretty seafoam color. This has got to be wool, or it's just really nice acrylic, but it's buttery soft. It does go very well with this chunky blue. I bought these for a specific purpose, and it is for a video that I will be showing you guys. But I bought these two skeins for $3.29 and they were half off. For this project, I'm using Big Twist circular needle size 8. I think the cord was 80 centimeters. I cannot remember exactly. I will put it in the description, but they ended up being a little bit too long anyway, so I just used a traveling loop method, which I will show you a little bit later. With my hip measurement and my gauge swatch, I worked out that I needed to cast on 120 stitches. I wear a size medium in bottoms and my waist is 27 inches, so if you just want to go off of my measurements, feel free. But if not, I do have that equation to help you calculate however many stitches you need to cast on. I used a long tail cast on, and the first thing that we're going to work on is the waistband. So once you have all those stitches cast on, you're going to join in the round and you're just going to start knitting. I knit stockinette in the round for about 15 rows, and then I flipped the casted on edge up to create the waistband. I've never done this method before, so this was very new to me. It was a little bit difficult, but I liked the idea of getting the waistband and the elastic and everything out of the way instead of going back and doing it at the end, which is why I attempted this. I definitely wasn't perfect at it, but that's why I chose to do this method for the waistband. So what I'm going to be doing is flipping that casted on edge up to my working round, and I'm going to pick up those stitches from my cast on in order to fold that fabric up. The goal here is to make a channel for us to put the elastic through. So I'm just going into that first stitch as if I was knitting normally, and then I'm picking up that first cast on stitch and kind of adding that to that knit stitch. It's going to create a little double stitch when you do it at first, but when you go back after you finish picking up all of these stitches on the next round, you're going to knit those as if they were one, and then everything will be back to normal. If I'm not explaining this very well, I will link a video below that I used to reference this method. Anyways, you're gonna pick up all those stitches all the way around, being very careful to line up your live stitches with your cast on. And once that's almost done, don't finish the round. Once you get to the very end of the round, you wanna leave a little hole for us to feed the elastic through. And once you're there, you're just going to measure a piece of elastic that matches your waist measurement. I usually go a half an inch or an inch shorter than that, just for stretch and for fit. You're carefully going to feed that elastic through that channel that we made. I use a safety pin, and once the elastic has come out the other side, you just have to stitch it together. Use whatever method you want. I chose to hand sew. You can use a sewing machine if you want. You could glue it. I don't know how stable that would be, but you just have to get the elastic stuck together. Also, pro tip, run your finger along your waistband to make sure that none of your elastic isn't rolled at all, because that will drive you crazy. Once your elastic has been sewn together, you can just stuff it into the waistband and forget about it, because you're done. And give yourself a pat on the back, because that's definitely the most difficult thing for this whole project, and it's out of the way. Like I said, just knit all those double stitches, and then we're going to start our increasing rows. Split your knitting in half, so you're going to place another stitch marker at the halfway point, and you're going to do increases on both sides of your shorts. The very beginning of the row, you're going to do a left lifted increase. So you're going to pick up the stitch a row or two down from your right needle, and you're going to knit that. Then you're going to knit until you get 2 stitches before your next stitch marker. Now we're going to do a right lifted increase. So do a make 1 right lifted increase. You're going to pick up a stitch from the left side this time, knit those 2, move your stitch marker over, and then you're going to go back to the left lifted increase. So go a row below the row you just knit, pick that up with your left needle, knit that, and you're almost done. We have 1 more increase to do, so you're going to knit until you get to 2 before the very end of your row. Once you're there, you're going to do the make 1 right lifted increase. So you're going to lift up a row from your left needle, knit that, knit your next 2 stitches, and then the next round is just going to be straight knits. You're gonna do that row with increases every other row until the shorts are as wide as you want. In order to determine how big you need them, I just take them off the needles and try them on as I go, and then once they're big enough to get over the largest part of my hips, and then some because I wanted them to be a little bit roomier, then you can stop increasing. Also, because I was doing stripes for these shorts, I thought I would show you how to carry your colors or float them so that you don't have any weird bunching or pulling. See how I'm twisting the red underneath the white? That's what you want to do. And then I kind of hold the red in my right hand. I knit with my left. If you do it differently, I'm sorry if that's confusing, but you just make sure you twist that unused color underneath the used color at the beginning of the round so you can float your colors. Also, pro tip, if you want clean jogless stripes, after you have knit around with your new color, when you're changing colors, when you get to the beginning of the round, pick up the last stitch of the last color you used and knit them together. It'll give you nice, clean stripes, which is what we want. The first try on with what I think is all of the increases I need because I still have room back here. I want them to be like a little bit of a looser fit. I'm just gonna keep going straight until it's time to split the legs off. Good evening. I just got back from work and I want to get some more done on these shorts. I just tried them on. Why is trying on your knitting? Why does it feel like such a big task? It doesn't even take that long, but this is how they're looking so far. I thought I would run into this issue. Okay, so in the front, it kind of looks like they're about ready to be joined in the middle. But in the back, not so much. I was trying to avoid doing German short rows, but I don't think I'm going to be able to if I want coverage in the back. So, don't know how I'm going to do that with the stripes. We'll see. Okay, so I ended up ripping out maybe like 20 rows, and that's okay. Listen, don't be afraid to frog. This is my favorite new way to go back on my knitting. You see how I'm picking up just the right-hand side of each of those, each little balloon of the stitch. This allows you to get your work back onto the needle, so when you frog everything out, you're just ready to start knitting again. I have ripped out all of the stitches and I'm back to like the halfway point, and I have split the knitting into 4 sections equally. So we had the stitch marker at the beginning and at the halfway point for the increases, and I counted, divided in half, and I added stitch markers on the halfway point between those because this is going to be the front and the back of the shorts, and this is going to be the sides, and I'm going to add those German short rows only on the back of the work because we want the back to have more fabric than the front. So I'm finally to my second German short row that I'm going to do on the back. I'm doing them at the bottom of every row on the back. So I already did one on this red stripe. I just did it off camera because I've never done this before. So I wanted to make sure I was doing it right before I showed you. But the first thing that you're going to do is knit to that first blue stitch marker. Also, something I'd like to mention with these stitch markers, so you can see this is the center back, and then I've got 2 markers just so I can remember where I want to turn for the short rows. And one thing that I read while I was doing research for this was that you want to stagger the short rows so that you don't have like a puff. I guess if you do them on the same row over and over again, you can create like a kind of a weird puffy section of your work. So you want to like stagger them out. So what I'm doing is moving these 3 stitches out from the center every time I do a row. Okay, so I'm approaching this first stitch marker, and I'm not going to do anything fancy yet. I'm just going to knit to, not this one, this is the center back. I'm going to knit all the way to this guy, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do next. Now I have my assistant here, but now you can see I'm to that last blue stitch marker. So we're going to do what is called a wrap and turn, and it's going to allow us to add some extra rows in this back area. So we're going to knit to the stitch marker. Take your yarn and you're going to wrap it. You're going to bring it to the front. See how I did that? I just brought it to the back to the front. We're going to slip this stitch over, and then we're going to wrap that yarn back to the back. We're going to slip this stitch back to its original position. And now when we turn the work around, now we can purl. And we're going to purl to that other stitch marker past the middle point. So not the next one, but the stitch marker after that. I also think this helps reduce extra fabric in the front, because no matter what size tushy you've got, I mean, really we all have different, I mean, really our bodies all are similar in that way, especially women. So that the back side's gonna have a little bit more fat than the front. So like when you think of it that way, I know it's a weird way to explain it, but this just helps with fit a lot. Now, if you are really afraid of these German short rows and you just don't want to do them, you don't have to. You could just skip all this and just knit straight until it's time for you to split the legs off. I will show you how to do that. And yeah, but if you're like me and you're like, hey, I just would like a little bit of extra fabric back there, this method is going to be great for you. And like I said, this was my first time ever attempting this, and it was not difficult at all. So if I can do it, you can definitely do it. Okay, now we're back to that stitch marker, and we're just going to do the same thing. I think these are ready to split off. I've never done this before, so I haven't tried them on, but I think going off the first 2 times that I tried them on, this will be good. Also, I measured the middle seam. I want the front and the back to equal about 20 inches. You can see we're right at about 11 on the back, which is great. And on the front, this is exactly what I wanted. The front is just a little bit shorter than the back. And the front is measuring to about 9 inches, which is perfect. So from the beginning to the middle back, the center back that's where we're going to close off the legs. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take a tapestry needle and some scrap yarn, and I'm going to run this through all of the stitches from here to here. So we can take this stitch marker out. I've also hooked my beginning stitch marker into the row right underneath this like active row because I don't want to lose my place. So this side I've split off and tied off, and I'm going to continue on to the first leg. I need to switch colors, and I also need to cast on a few stitches. So I'm going to start at the beginning. I think we're gonna have to do a traveling loop. Let's put the loop like right here. Just gonna pull that out. That's going to allow us to knit a little easier. Okay, so I cast on 3 stitches here, and I'm just going to do one more. So I've got 4 cast on stitches down here. Okay, so I'm gonna twist my red yarn under my white because I'm also going to switch colors now. So I'm going to just connect this leg by starting to knit in the round, and I'm going to knit until I get to like the stitch before those 4 stitches we casted on, and 1 stitch before those stitches that I casted on. So I'm going to take these 2 guys and I'm going to knit them together. I'm going to just go ahead and knit the 2 in the middle normally. And then this last one, I'm also going to knit with the beginning of this round. And that should help close up the gusset once we get there. And I'm going to put a stitch marker here. The legs are split off, and we are working on our last row of I decided to do a couple rows of ribbing at the bottom of the shorts just to prevent them from curling, because if you just knit stockinette, it tends to curl. So I think I did like 3 rows of ribbing at the very bottom on my last red row. I could have done more, honestly. I think I could have stretched that out a little bit farther. So if you're also doing ribbing on the bottom of your leg holes, it might be a good idea to make them a couple rows longer than your normal stripes. Also, I don't think I mentioned each stripe is 6 rows. That's what I did for my stripes. You can make them bigger, smaller, whatever you want to do. You don't have to knit stripes if you don't want to. This is your project. These are your shorts. Once your ribbing is done, you can go ahead and bind them off. I did a normal bind off, and after I tried them on, I wish I would have done a stretchy one. So I'll link a video in the description and you can learn from my mistake and do a stretchy bind off if you feel like it, but you could also just do a normal one. Again, your shorts, you do whatever you want. Okay, now we're ready to pick up the second leg. We're going to pick up those 4 stitches that we cast on from the first leg, and we're gonna knit 2 of those with the first and the last stitch of this leg hole, and that's gonna help close up the gusset or like any holes that could potentially be happening where the leg split off. And you can see I'm doing this with a crochet hook, so just take any normal size crochet hook and we're gonna pull a loop through those stitches that we cast on for the first leg. Once you have those stitches on your crochet hook, I just pull the crochet hook out and I put them on my right hand needle. You're going to slip one of those stitches that you just picked up onto your left needle, and you're gonna knit that with the first stitch of this round. And then you're gonna knit that last cast it on stitch with the last stitch of this round. I don't think I recorded myself doing that. Okay, you guys, one thing about using acrylic yarn is you can get these little pills. This thing will take those off. I got this on TikTok Shop, but it's also on Amazon Prime, so I'll have it linked below. It's got 3 different settings. I'm gonna go with, let's start low. Let's start at number 1, just because I've never used this fun yarn before. Okay. So you just go in circles. That's the part I did. That's the part I still have to do. So I'm going to go over all of these and we're going to block them and then we'll be done. They're done. They're not perfect, but I didn't even use half of those 2 big skeins that I got from Goodwill to make these. It could not have cost me more than $5 with the yarn that I used to make these shorts. So keeping that in mind, I love them and I will definitely wear them. For my first pair of shorts, not bad. Let me know what you think of these in a comment below. I would love that. Like this video if you liked this tutorial. I'm doing weekly knitting, crocheting, all fiber arts videos on this channel, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to see more. Hit the bell notification if you want to know when I post so you don't miss out. All the products that I use to make these will be linked in the description, along with any links to video tutorials or techniques that I use that I think might be helpful for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon.